to go. For instance, NASA is the world's largest magic show. 9/11 was a planned demolition and Sandy Hook was a scam. Come on, man, are you tripping? Constant programming being crammed in your vision. Just take a step back and examine this prison. Turn on the news and they're trying to blind you. All they ever do is tell you lies and divide you. There's nowhere you can even hide, they'll find you. Illuminati, all-seeing eye right behind you. It's about time you find out we're being lied to. They're attempting to control the mind that's inside you, hide you from the power that designed you. Does anybody have a problem with this? Well, I do. I want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. They say they got it, but they're never coming up with proof. If you're looking, then they got you jumping through these hoops. The lies always continuing to rise and busting through the roof. I want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. They say they got it, but they're never coming.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Flat Earth Podcast. I'm your co-host, Curious Jay, alongside me, Dave from deep inside the rabbit hole. Thank you for joining us once again for another hour or so of Flat Earth audio. Dave, how you doing this week, brother?
I am excited to be alive and aware, but it is exhausting seeing all the deceptions out there and how many people are blind. And, I did ask somebody if they had any blue pills available, but I don't think I would take it.
Don't do it.
Because I don't think they work.
Now, no, you can't because you're just too deep, Dave.
I am deep inside the rabbit hole, that is for sure.
Well, I tell you what's been exhausting in a good way for me has been tuning into all of these post-solar eclipse videos that everyone's been putting out from Globebusters to the Flat Earth Core group to the Sun and Moon guys. I mean, it has been a non-stop analysis of this thing since it's been over, and I think it's just incredible how much content has come out since the eclipse itself.
You know, Bob from Globebusters has been talking about the magnetic model of Flat Earth. And then Chris, I believe the guy's name is, on the Sun and Moon group, who sounds a lot like our good friend, A Curious Life, no, Truth is Stranger Than Fiction, yeah. The way he talks. But he has got some amazing computer graphic skills and knowledge of magnetics and geology, and it has really been showing some groundbreaking stuff.
Yeah, the stuff that he was showing via Photoshop and all these other tools, where what happens to a light when it is blocked, the light signature that is created, etc. I can't even explain it all, but if you haven't checked it out, you need to, because it's really good at not showing us what exactly is happening up there, but definitely showing us what is not happening.
If you're wondering what we're talking about, there's they do these hangouts that are 2, 3, 4, 6 hours long sometimes, and there's real amazing nuggets of research in there. They kind of do live research on the air. So for people that are looking for shorter clips, Globebusters put up probably a 20-minute clip from the other day of Chris talking about this magnetic model, and I've watched it 3 times, and you still learn more every time you watch it.
Yeah, I caught the original one, and then I caught the one just from a couple days ago where Mr. Thrive and Survive was on with them. And, the coolest thing about this electromagnetic model is that it explains so much so easily. I mean, it really does.
Yeah, absolutely. There is the group called the Electric Universe, the Electric Universe group. They have so much right, except they believe in, the heliocentric model, so to speak, but that it's all electric and magnetic. If they would only see that, it's set up a little differently, I think it would make a lot more sense. Chris and the Sun and Moon group showed some videos. I don't know if you saw it, where there's electrical charges going into the Earth that are creating all of these features that we see from, the Grand Canyon. He thinks that the Grand Canyon could have been an electrical event that happened in a matter of minutes.
Yeah, it also immediately made me think of the issue that we've mentioned a few times on this show, and that is the fault line issue and how it relates to the eclipses.
Yeah.
I mean, immediately when I saw them mention the Grand Canyon, I thought, the 2 largest fault lines line up with the next, or the most recent solar eclipses. And I'm like, I guess I was just so relieved that there could actually be a scientific connection and a way to explain that.
So is the eclipse causing the crack, that magnetic, fault in the earth, or is that fault guiding the eclipse?
Ha, I don't know. I guess that's the $1 million question, isn't it? I did
Yeah.
a little bit of backwards research trying to look into history and see if we've had lots of eclipses on that same path, on those paths of the fault lines. But the problem with looking back through history, when you go back more than a couple hundred years ago, you have to question if it's even true or not.
Right. A lot of people have been, for some reason, in the last few weeks, people have been bringing up, what about, meteor impacts? And they show these perfectly circular, impact craters, the one in Arizona and other ones. And I've always looked into methane bubbles where the earth actually is boiling. Um, the electromagnetic work that Chris and Bob have talked about, and there is some there's some experiments where they show electricity going into the ground and it bubbles up and it creates these perfectly round craters. And so they're not coming from impact. I had an experience when I was in college. The main power line on the middle of campus snapped and it hit the pavement, and power went out. But when we were finally allowed to walk in that area, it had boiled the entire road for probably 200 feet, where it looked like the moon. It looked just like the craters that we see on the moon and in Arizona, that big famous one, I forget the name of it. But believing that it's something that hit the earth where there's never anything in there doesn't make any sense. And if they were hitting the earth, they'd be all different shapes. They wouldn't be hitting at 90-degree angles, creating a perfectly round crater.
Yeah, perfectly round. And I think Bob from Glowbusters has mentioned them before, the Thunderbolt group.
Yeah, that's it.
Right, those guys. Well, they've been saying for quite a while that the electromagnetic universe, I don't really know how to explain it that well, but that it can cause these craters. And then when you looked at Chris's work and showing how it all happens, it's like it really does all fit.
Yeah, and there's also experiments where people are taking electricity and vibration and sound and cranking it into barrels of dirt, and then these formations come up out of the earth and carve their way into the earth. These are experiments that are observable, testable, and repeatable.
Yeah, exactly. And another cool thing was that the electromagnetic model actually allows for your theory of the projected sun. It can work on that. And I thought that was awesome. I just think that the 3 weeks prior to the solar eclipse, right around August 1st, if you look at that period from August 1st through about September 1st, and the amount of research that people have been putting in and the amount of information that we've gained in that period, to me, it's unprecedented, and it's just awesome.
Absolutely. It's I'm seeing what some are calling flat Earth unity. I don't consider myself part of any group. I'm just researching. You and I get together. We talk about it. I talk to other people. I'll talk to anybody. I'm not in the flat Earth movement. I am just looking for truth wherever it comes.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't subscribe to any certain group. I just kind of get the information from wherever you can and watch all the channels, because everyone's got different ideas. But the one common denominator, I guess, is that we don't believe in the heliocentric model. But like I say, the last month has been just incredible as far as the research being done, what we are learning to be able to eliminate from the heliocentric model itself has been unprecedented. And it doesn't matter which group you look into, everyone has been analyzing the solar eclipse, and it's just been awesome.
Yeah, amazing work coming out. It's every day that I, take the time to look at some stuff, my mind is blown every day. There's so much that we've learned, and the more we learn, we realize there's even more that we don't know.
Yeah, it's been an awesome time to be involved with all of this. On a less scientific note, did you catch the Mayweather-McGregor fight?
I didn't even know that who Mayweather or McGregor were, but speaking of some videos this week, Isa Mahal, who is a flat earther out of the East Coast here, he sent me a link to this video he made about Mayweather and McGregor, and I'm like, first, who are these guys? Then I'm like, oh, it's a big fight. I guess I did hear some guys in the gym talking about it. And I listened to this thing, and it took me almost a minute to realize what he was doing. And it is the most underappreciated video. It has 253 views. But I think it is a work of art, and I think we should play it right here.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm just doing this quick vid to remind everyone why Conor McGregor is going to win this fight, and how Flat Earth is going to help. I think Floyd's inability to detect curvature at 120,000 feet like the rest of us is going to leave us just amazed. The lack of authentic pictures of space is going to leave him dizzy. I think McGregor is going to take advantage of the level playing field that's been hidden from too many for too long. I think maybe boxers have gotten a little bit in their head that for some reason that they live on a spinning ball, and that they're going to have to recognize that, you know, the mathematical precision of the speed of McGregor will clearly exemplify the inability to find curvature. I mean, they are just at a loss. The boxing community is going to have a hard time addressing the validity and the scientific questioning that McGregor is going to bring to the table. I think he's going to catch him with the left hand probably in the second round. I think it'll be due to Mayweather's doesn't realize that plain sailing navigation treats 600 nautical miles as flat. Therefore, how could a boat have ever gone over the curvature at the beach? And I think Mayweather is going to have a hard time with the footwork sliding around that issue. Too much of McGregor's ability to take a punch and to be able to dish out the reality that there's no frickin' way that there's a rover on Mars. It just will not compute. Mayweather will get flustered. I think he's going to feel the pressure in the first round, probably try to move away from McGregor. If he does rush in, McGregor's going to catch him in the face with an easy picture from 120,000 feet where there is no detectable curvature. And if that's the case, you cannot, I don't care how good your footwork is, you cannot dance around the issue that if at 120,000 feet you can't see curvature, that there's no way that a boat went over the beach or went over the curve of the earth at the beach. Boxing fans are going to have a hard time dealing with that. I think the MMA community is pretty familiar with it. Eddie Bravo has kind of got us up to speed a little bit. There has been some naysaying in the MMA community. They're mad at McGregor. For some reason, I think it's just they're jealous. But that's all right. I think there's certain people that understand that the hype surrounding this is just so valuable. It's going to push the two combat sports together. And I think together maybe they will discover that there is level playing field that's been hidden from everyone. I don't know. I haven't heard much of the analysts talking about this, so it's kind of surprising to me that they haven't addressed it. People are more concerned about who Mayweather's going to be walking out with. You know what I mean? So it's like they haven't even addressed the fact that there's not one authentic picture of space or of the Earth from space. I mean, they're all CGI. I mean, even NPR did a piece talking about how they have to fake every picture. And I think boxing is just not ready for this. I think McGregor's going to bring a left hand out of nowhere, probably in, like I said, the second round. It's going to be a tough one because modern scientists tried to say that because of Polaris's altitude and the fact that it dips closer to the horizon at 69 miles for 1 degree of arc of curvature, like that's good enough. And I think Mayweather is going to have a hard time reconciling that. McGregor's going to probably catch him, a couple times in the first round. I'd be surprised if he doesn't end it in the first round because they can't find the curve. All right, guys. So my prediction is second round knockout from McGregor because Mayweather is shook because he can't find an authentic picture of space no matter how hard he looks. All right, y'all. Peace. Enjoy the fight.
All right. Great work from Issa there. In case you were wondering what in the heck was going on, he was basically using the McGregor-Mayweather fight and an analysis of that fight as a metaphor for the flat earth, and he did it really brilliantly, I thought.
Yeah, that is my kind of humor. You listen to these sports announcers talk about, so-and-so, he's got the footwork and he does this and he could do that and he's going to have an advantage and everyone's got opinion. you could play this for somebody that's into the fight, and it'll probably take them a minute or two or to realize that what he's saying has nothing to do with what these guys are doing. It's great. I look forward to more stuff like this, because you can take this. I believe he tweeted it, into groups that were into the fight. And I'm sure some non-flat earthers are hearing this for the first time, and now they've got that bug in their head, and soon they'll be fully infected.
Yep. And I just love when someone uses humor and creativity to get a message out. And speaking of getting the message out, did you see Paul and the Plains Uber trip video?
No, I did not. Tell me.
Well, so basically he's in a car. He just has his phone with him, and you can see him recording himself. And he's talking to the Uber driver, and he casually kind of brings up flat earth, approaches it delicately, and the guy wants to hear more. And what was so cool about it is he just starts going over these points like, yeah, I'm watching these flat earth videos and stuff doesn't make sense and this and that. And the guy was actually into it. And even though at one point Paul said, sorry for babbling, just stop me if I'm getting too crazy or whatever. And the guy's like, no, please continue. I want to hear more. It's very interesting. And, it's just a good showcase for how to talk to a stranger about this stuff, if you're ever in an Uber car or wherever else. It was really good.
So about a year ago, I stopped doing Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole. And whenever I would go into the city, there was this little taco bar that I like to go to have a little dinner before the show. And we've talked about, the guys there, we would talk about conspiracy and stuff. I came in, it's been over a year since I was there. I'm there with Paige, and the guy's like, where do I know you from? And it's like, you know me from here. I was here a year ago. And he's asking, what we're doing the show on. And boom, Paige had a Flat Earth t-shirt on. Flat Earth comes up, and he's like, I was just talking about Flat Earth the other day. And then the chef comes out of the kitchen who's over here, and he's like, yeah, and what was amazing is they had Flat Earth on their mind. They had been looking into it. And, a year or two ago, that wasn't happening. You mentioned Flat Earth and you get the eye roll. You're crazy. I'm not looking. Now everyone's already heard about it.
You're exactly right. And it reminds me of another video that I just watched in the last day or two. Did you see the video where Robbie from Celebrate Truth was on the radio show with the guys doing that interview?
I did. That was good. He held his own there. It was.
Yeah, he definitely held his own.
He had a little rough going. He wasn't prepared for some of it, but drew a blank on pulling up the Bible verses.
Oh yeah, I don't think he was ready for that one.
But still, it doesn't matter. He did a fantastic job.
Yeah, no, he did. He did a great job. But I think the most significant part about that interview is, the guest wasn't on board. The host wasn't on board, obviously, but the calls. Right. The calls were like, I think they took like 4 calls, and 3 out of the 4 were supportive of the flat earth. It was insane. If you go back 2 years ago and look at a flat earth interview on the radio, it would have been completely the opposite.
It's amazing. This guy, his biggest argument, the host's biggest argument was that stars spin in the opposite direction in the south. And that doesn't prove the shape of the earth. You can explain that on a globe, but I think you can also explain it on a flat earth. If you have a disk of stars in front of you, you're looking at, let's say the North Star is like 45 degrees in front of you, and they're going counterclockwise around that star. Turn around, expand that disk, keep it right where it is. It's now going clockwise. The perspective will make it look like it's going clockwise because they're coming up from the opposite side, and they'll get higher and then lower as they go towards the horizon. Even though they're sweeping, what would really be a smiley face, a smile from your position, the perspective makes it look like a frown. And that would be the opposite direction. Yeah.
The guy kept going back to that. That was like his only leg that he was trying to stand on. And, when people ask me in the past about the southern stars going the opposite way or whatever, I just say that, that explanation of it being a globe fits what we see. But in no way does that make it a proof, because if there is one other explanation that could possibly create the same illusion, for instance, maybe, light bending, maybe the atmosphere, the firmament, anything. If there's one other explanation that could actually make those stars go a different way, well, then obviously the fact that it's a globe is not It's not a proof of the globe. It's just simply an explanation for it.
Yep. Have you seen the experiment where a guy has two arrows on the wall facing in the same direction, and then slides a glass of water in front of one of them, and it's now facing in the other direction?
Yep. I've seen that one. That's awesome. And I also send people to my channel to check out the video on the star trails.
Yep.
Where I basically took a magnifying glass dome that I bought off of Amazon, and on the screen, on my computer screen, I played a video of the star trails going around Polaris counterclockwise, basically northern hemisphere. And I hold the magnifying glass dome up to the screen, and I start looking at it from different angles as if we were under this glass dome. And lo and behold, when you look at it at different angles, the spirals start going the opposite direction. The trails go clockwise instead of counterclockwise. So I'm not in any way saying that is what is happening with the Southern Stars. What I am saying, though, is that until science rules out any other explanation, then no, the Southern Stars going the opposite direction in the Southern Hemisphere, if they do, is not proof of any globe. It's simply an explanation that could work.
Awesome. Before we get to our guest, do we have any speak pipes?
Yeah, actually we do. I've got one. Let me pull it up here from James.
Yes, my name is James Chamberlain from Stark, Florida. I have a family member that I was discussing how NASA fakes their space missions and how the ISS is obviously not in space, that they're doing everything on a green screen. And he's actually an iron worker, and right now they're working in the NASA launch pads and stuff. So he told me that he's seen a SpaceX rocket land and launch, and he's seen it in person. So if I believe him, if he is telling the truth, because I was trying to tell him that it could be CGI or something like that. There's SpaceX rockets, and he said that he's seen it in person. So if he's telling the truth, I'm just curious to your thought on how they would be faking that, because I know they're faking it somehow.
All right. Thank you, James, for that message and question. So his friend does some iron work, maybe a third-party work for SpaceX, and says that he has personally seen the rockets taking off from the barge. Dave, how do you respond to that?
So there's a couple possibilities. One which I have no idea that is the case, is that the guy's completely lying and in on it. I don't think that's the case. I think there are people that do steel work, that do build things. Everything is isolated, and maybe he was allowed to see the magic show from 3 miles away with a row of trees, that are 100 feet tall, blocking the final part. And he was shown some Project Bluebeam nonsense. And maybe he saw a launch from that distance. I believe they are launching something, big helium balloon with a firework on the bottom, probably. And then it goes out over the ocean and they pop it. What do you think?
Well, I think, first of all, I'll say like you, I don't know how they're doing it, but I think that it is much easier for us to explain how they do the video trickery, by going to a different camera angle, things like the augmented reality videos where guys like Mike Hellman have analyzed those and figured out the video trickery that they are doing. So that is one aspect that we can kind of analyze and work on. But when it comes to someone who says, hey, I was there live and I saw the thing take off, well, to borrow an example or a phrase from Jaronism, a lot of people saw David Copperfield make the Statue of Liberty disappear, and they were there in person and saw it happen. So, no matter what they saw, I don't know how he did it, but I do know that he did not make the Statue of Liberty disappear.
I thought he moved it. Damn.
No, it didn't happen. I hate to let you down, be the guy who let you down there, but no, it didn't happen. He did. It was magic, and that's what I say is to answer a question like that. I don't know how they did it, but I do know that it's a trick, and that magic tricks all happen all the time, and we can't explain it, but we know that the magician didn't really saw the lady in half.
It certainly is. It's an illusion. 3 miles. You don't know what you're seeing at 3 miles. There's so much, distortion. There's so many different ways to fool us. I believe that they can project with good evidence, project physical, 3-dimensional looking things in the air. We've seen it with Tupac, right? And the holograms on stage, and we've seen a lot of videos where people are reporting cities in the sky over China.
Yeah, no, that's another one. Perfect example. I can't explain it. I don't know if it's a hologram. I don't know what it is, but I do know that it's not a city floating on a cloud, hovering over China. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I would have a year ago. I would have completely agreed with that without questioning. But now there's just so many things I can't rule out anything. But no, there wasn't a city in the sky. But
Right, I'm the same way. I don't think we can rule out anything, whether it's projection or ultra dimensions or whatever it is. But I just know that it's probably not a city in the sky. It's a magic trick. Before we go to our break, one other video that I made note of this week. Did you catch the Potter's Clay video that he did this time on the lunar eclipse? Did you see that one?
Well, on the solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse, where they show, we're told that the moon is 2,100 miles or so wide, and it could cast a 70-mile wide shadow on the Earth, which we all have problems with, but they say umbra, penumbra, and it does that, with a 93 million mile away moon. You have your sun, 93 million mile away sun. You have your moon, which is 238,000 miles away, and the Earth. And when the narrowing shadow hits the Earth, it's 70 miles wide. Well, when you swap the position of the moon and the Earth, which would be a lunar eclipse, using their same math with umbra and penumbra, the width of the Earth's shadow would be 256 miles wide, which would be the size of a tennis ball on passing in front of a small beach ball.
Right.
But that's not what we see. We see the entire sun the entire moon get eaten by the shadow, which, from the curve of it that proves that it's, round, supposedly, is bigger than the moon.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like,
so
you can't.
To me, that's a ball killer right there.
Yeah. Same here. It's like he pointed out the fact that, science itself basically has two different models completely as far as how their umbra, penumbra, magic light show stuff works on the two different eclipses. Lunar eclipse, the solar eclipse that just happened, as we pointed out many, many times, you've got a 2,000 mile wide object making a 70 mile wide shadow. So a shadow gets smaller than the object, which of course can't be duplicated anywhere else in real life. But then on the lunar eclipse, the shadow stays the same size as the Earth, or perhaps even bigger. The math doesn't work out, and you can't have it both ways. And I thought it was awesome. Another great video by Potter's Clay. He's actually the one that started the solar eclipse west to east path stuff, about a month ago, that whether or not you think it can work on the heliocentric model, it was his video that got everyone discussing and researching and learning more.
Just the fact that science, when they brought it to, different people in science, couldn't explain it. They provided us models with the Earth spinning in the wrong direction, a non-spinning Earth. They didn't know how to explain it. So that just tells you where their pseudoscience scientism is coming from.
Yeah. And the thing about that science's excuse with the west to east path and the fact that the moon's going 2,000 miles an hour, their excuse, their reasoning, I wonder if we went back in history in the textbooks anywhere and looked, would it still be there? Like, I really don't think it is. I think it's something they just came up with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I'm under the impression, or it's my opinion, that no, it didn't exist until we all started asking questions. And, I've said on record before, I am still not convinced of their excuse, their reasoning of the moon going faster, and due to the things like the rotational speed versus the angular speed and whatever. But I'll put that aside for now and just say, hey, you know what? We've all learned from this eclipse, this solar eclipse, is that there's like 3 or 4 massive problems with that shadow. The fact that it gets so much smaller, that's number one. The fact that the penumbra umbra stuff that they've told us doesn't make sense. I mean, there is no penumbra. There isn't. It's, I was in California watching the eclipse. It was supposed to be partial. We were supposed to be in the penumbra, and the sun was shining brighter than it has any other day. I mean, it was 100% sun being cast on the Earth. Yeah, we were in this supposed shadow. Like I say, there's just numerous things. Now you factor in the fact that the penumbra umbra system does something totally different when the Earth casts a shadow on the moon. And we've got some serious problems with that solar eclipse.
Yep. I have one more observation I want to bring up real quick is getting back to the electric universe, and our tides are electrically pulled on or pushed by this system that we live in. During the eclipse that we had, I was down on the water and there was a nice little breeze. There's a lot of boats swell out there, but there was no real waves, but there was the little ripples from the wind. And the wind did not change during the eclipse, but during the biggest part of the eclipse, all those ripples laid down, and the water became super glossy. Like it had undulations from boats, but they were almost mirror-like. And I've never really seen that before. And I am theorizing that is due to the wind becomes electrified by the energy from the sun. I was out kite surfing last weekend, and it was blowing about 25 knots, and there was like 4 to 5 foot waves consistent everywhere. And now we're taught that when there's a wave in the water, that once the wave is formed, it'll just keep going, like a tsunami that happens. And that is a wave that will just keep going. But I never understood how the wind would scoop up the water and create these 4 or 5 foot waves. But during the middle of our sailing, the wind dropped down to about 12 to 15 knots. It just stopped. And within seconds, those waves disappeared. They were all just gone. And the water was, much, much calmer. If those were real waves that had been pushed up and used the wind's energy to push on their backs, which still doesn't make sense, they would have just kept going for a little while. But as soon as the wind dropped down, they dropped down. Wind picked back up, bam, they just appeared out of nowhere.
Wow. Yeah, it's reminding me once again of the fault line in the way that, when you apply this electromagnetic universe or world that we're living in, if you apply that model to what's going on, it can explain so much. And there's so many aspects that I don't think science has looked into. I don't think science has ever looked into, what happens with wind and what happens with water when the electromagnetic sun and moon are doing their dance as they're rotating above a flat Earth. It just hasn't been researched yet,
Yep. All right, let's get to our guests because our shows are going to be hitting 2 hours before we know it.
Yeah, we'll hit 2 hours with no problems. But before we go to the guests, one last reminder. For those of you who heard the show last episode and went on iTunes and gave us a review, we really appreciate it. But I've got to put out one more call because for every person who leaves a good review, it seems like a Glober is tuning in to our reviews and drops one of their, oh, this is crap, these guys are so stupid reviews. So if you haven't done so already, go to iTunes. Even if you don't, listen to the show on iTunes, I think you're still able to go to iTunes, find the show, the Flat Earth Podcast, click on reviews, and leave us a review. Doesn't matter what it is, just give us your thoughts. If you enjoy the show, tell us honestly how you feel about it, and we'd really appreciate that.
Yeah, give us an honest review, whatever you want. 5 stars is fine. If not, take a hike.
Right. Because if you leave your honest review, I promise it'll be way better than what the Globe guys are doing. I promise that's not honest because they don't even listen to the show. They just trash it,
It tells us that we're over the target.
Yes, we are. We're getting close. We're hot, as they say. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll have a guest with us on when we get back right here on the Flat Earth Podcast.
Following announcement has been paid for by
the Flat Earth Podcast.
You want to leave a digital voicemail for us? Head over to theflatearthpodcast.com and click on the blue link that reads, "Got a question? Send us a message."
You can do it from your iPhone or from your computer. First time you do it on your cellular phone, you'll have to download a little app. But after that, you can leave us all kinds of messages. If you want to be anonymous, you can make up a name, make up an email address. We don't care. We just want to hear what you have to say.
We'll do our best to play or answer these questions and comments on future episodes right here on the Flat Earth Podcast. Download the SpeakPipe app and check us out at theflatearthpodcast.com.
The Flat Earth Podcast.
If you're watching this audio on YouTube right now and you're not familiar with the world of podcasting, There's a far better way to listen to the Flat Earth Podcast each and every week.
Think of it like your TiVo or your DVR is to your television. You subscribe to whatever show that you like. Whenever a new episode comes out, it records it, downloads it, and notifies you that there's a new episode for easy listening anywhere. Another great feature on most podcast players is you could speed up if you want to hear stuff even faster, or more importantly, it has a jump back and jump forward 30 seconds so you could skip annoying announcements like this.
We're on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and so many more. If we're not on your favorite podcast app, send us a message and let us know to make sure we will be.
The Flat Earth Podcast.
All right, back with us here on the Flat Earth Podcast, and here with us now we have a very special guest on the line. Dave, who we got with us today?
One of my favorite podcasters, Jason Lindgren. Did I say that right, Jason? Lindgren?
Yes.
Jason has the Secrets of Saturn show, which I was lucky enough to be a guest on years ago. More recently, in addition to that, he is the co-host, I'll say, of the Crow 777 podcast, one of my favorite podcasts. The two of them together go where no podcaster has ever gone before. How's that sound?
That sounds about right. Thank you. I am indeed the co-host now, and it was Crow's show originally, and we just kind of hit it off, and we're really good friends now. We realized we complement each other very well because I'm very objective about the way I look at things, and he's very headstrong, you might say. But we both really know our stuff, so the way we do the show together every week is we discuss topics, and there's things we haven't gotten to yet. Obviously, we're just going through and picking things as we think they might have the best impact, especially if there's an event going on. For instance, this last week we did about the eclipse because the eclipse just happened.
And that was a killer show, by the way, Jason.
Oh, thank you. And what we do is we just do as much research as possible, and I basically script the show, and then he scripts his own side, and then we just kind of compare notes and go for it. We've come to know each other so well that we don't step on each other's toes anymore. Like we just kind of know each other's voices now. So he'll speak and I'll speak, and we go back and forth, and if there's something we don't agree on, which happens every now and then, we just kind of discuss it.
So on this show, we often step on each other's toes, and
all the time.
Yeah, and we don't script anything out. We see where the show goes. But since you mentioned, your last show, which was always great, the highlight of my week, it was the eclipse, and we've only talked about the eclipse for the first 6 episodes. This being episode number 7. Let's just quickly touch on that again, and I want to hear your experience. You viewed it in close to totality, I think?
No, I only saw it about 35%. I couldn't see it myself too much down here in the south. I put some sunglasses on, looked through my tinted car windows, and it was dark enough that I can make it out. And I could see the moon kind of taking a bite out of it, but I couldn't really make it out too much. I did look into a lot of other people's info, though. The video you sent me and quite a few others, because Crow and I had a discussion about it, before we did the show. So yeah, I definitely looked into it, and like I say a lot on Crow 777 Radio, inconsistencies are what I found.
Yeah, we've listed quite a few on this show just in the past 6 weeks, but I guess we always go back to the fact that a 2,000-mile wide object can't make a 70-mile wide shadow.
Well,
Or
I don't subscribe to, I don't subscribe to any one group because, and this is something Crow and I have always agreed on right from the beginning, when you subscribe to a group, for better or ill, you're going to be subject to whatever those people do. So even if 99.9% of the people in the group are phenomenal, if one guy's outside humping a chicken, all of a sudden everybody's humping chickens. Or
Right.
at least you're accused of that. So I try to remain completely and utterly objective and just look at data to the best of my ability. And that's what I bring to, as Crow likes to say, this is what you bring to the table, Jason, that I love so much. And I'm always going to be that way until I can literally go into space myself and find out what's really, truly going on. I will just keep analyzing data. And what did I see for the eclipse? To use this as an example, I saw inconsistencies. I saw people doing video work and photography work where it seemed like the noise wasn't right in the background. People started pulling apart the Photoshops, just like we see with NASA a lot. I saw where it seemed like the moon wasn't the moon. It was just almost like someone stuck a piece of paper over it, for lack of a better term. It just, inconsistencies, man. Something wasn't right.
In your opinion, did anything go in front of the sun that we see?
I can't prove it one way or the other. It's, I grew up loving astronomy and NASA and all the stuff, probably like just about all of us, which is why we're looking into this in the first place, right? So as I got older and I started looking into things it really didn't take long to start finding out something wasn't right. I didn't heavily get into space fraud until I got with Crow. Like, I looked at certain things and I was like, that doesn't look right. Something's off. It's kind of like 9/11, where like the first day I was like, oh, that's horrible. We need to do something about that. And the next day I looked at it and went, that's not right. That's just completely and utterly not right.
Yeah.
So, it's that kind of thing. And now, of course, for the past year or so, I've been heavily looking into things with space. And all I can say is just about every space program stuff I've looked into seems to have massive inconsistencies. The Earth doesn't look right, doesn't look consistent from video to video, pictures. I mean, and then we find out all the pictures are, they always say composites. I mean, they admit it most of the time these days too. And it's just like, it's nonsense, man. I don't know what's going on, but I can't get an accurate picture of our universe.
I'll take it one step farther. Every space program. You said just about every. I can't think of one that doesn't fit into that category.
Yeah, I agree.
I know you're
I'm
just
just
trying to be.
I am. I'm just trying to be nice.
Open. Leave a little window open there.
I do.
And did you? So when I said the thing about the 2,000-mile wide shadow, what's your opinion on that, Jason?
I'm really not entirely certain. It's just what we saw doesn't look like it matches what the mainstream model is. I cannot prove one way or the other. All I saw personally with my own eyes was a little chunk of the sun being blotted out. And I didn't have any sort of photographic equipment or any means to analyze it. So this is where I get very objective and is like, well, something got in front of the sun. Was it a giant rock? That I cannot prove. What I do know is when I saw other people, including my co-host, who I trust implicitly, he found inconsistencies. So I'm definitely in the I do not know what that was, but I don't think exactly what the mainstream says is accurate.
And the fact that the stuff we got from NASA was the lowest resolution stuff and proven photoshopped. Did you see the one where somebody actually photoshopped the moon over the totality? Put a transparent moon over the black disk.
I don't think I saw that one.
Yeah, no, but it was thrown in photo forensics and showed that it was, cut and pasted right in there, right up there with the space shuttle flying across.
Was that the one with the ISS, you mean?
No, that was a different one. But the one with the ISS, that one, that one was caught by two people. One of them was straight Smarter Every Day, that group. Mm-hmm. Either that guy is just completely in on it, or he was just fooled. They told him that's what they were doing, and they got in there remotely onto the computer and pasted that thing in, and his reaction seemed somewhat genuine, but it was complete nonsense. It was impossible to
wait. Catch me up on that, Dave. I'm not following you. Smarter Every Day. What did they do?
They captured the ISS transiting the sun.
Okay,
and it was
along with NASA.
Yeah, it was complete and total fakery.
Here's what I can tell you about that. Crow took the NASA one and just dissected it. And what he found, and he showed me this before we got on air because he had just done it. And he's like, hey, I want you to see this before we get on the air just so you know what I'm talking about. And just did a screen share. And it was so obvious. Like the resolution of the ISS over the sun was a much lower resolution. And when he did his little thing where he started changing the parameters around, he's like, do you see it? And I was like, yeah, I see it. I mean, it's freaking obvious. And I mean, they just took a picture of a crap resolution and stamped it on top of a real picture of the sun that they took. At least that's the way it looked, I mean, again, very hard to prove these things 100%, but all I can say is those pictures that he had released officially from NASA, massive inconsistencies again. So then this is my problem with everything. Why do they keep showing us things that we can just tear apart? Like with anyone with basic Photoshop skills, they can just destroy it in 2 minutes, Well,
I think, part of the reason that they do that, or I guess part of the answer as to why, is because they figure that 99.5% of the audience isn't tearing it apart in Photoshop. They're counting on that the masses aren't running it through Photoshop, aren't even looking at it skeptically.
I think that they don't care what we find out about it. The people that are tearing it apart, we already know. They cared the other people that refuse to look at that. They don't want them to know.
That may very well be. And, I don't know how much you guys are into this, but I look into a lot of the more esoteric or occult or whatever word you want to use aspects to a lot of the powers that be or whatever you want to call them. Some people don't like certain terms or Illuminati or New World Order or whatever. the bottom line is that there's some bad people at the very top of the pyramid. I think we could all agree on that.
Correct.
And they have a spiritual agenda of their own. And I'm not saying whether this is right or wrong or real or not, because I can't prove it. But it's what they seem to believe. Mm-hmm. They seem to have these spiritual beliefs that this bizarre karmic thing where they have to show you what they're doing to make it okay.
I'm all about that. I talk about that all the time, where they have to tell us what they're doing in their crazy little way. So they don't break the law of free will or whatever it is. And I'm 100% on board there.
Right. And if you're too profane or ignorant or unillumined to understand it, well, that's your own damn fault. We told you.
Yeah, we said it.
While at the same time, they're doing everything they possibly can to dumb down the majority of the planet. It's kind of a double-edged sword there, guys. If you want to tell us something, tell us, but don't destroy people to the point of where they're practically mentally retarded and couldn't understand how to tie their shoes, let alone all this bizarre symbology you throw out.
Right. And, what the elite are doing on levels of, with those rituals is just beyond what most people are willing to even discuss. I'm sitting there watching the eclipse. I got friends texting me and messaging, going back and forth 6 ways to Sunday. And I think I sent the funniest line of the eclipse. This is a woman friend of mine who was out in Arizona, and she was just totally into the eclipse. And I said, do you know that the elite are eating babies right now?
Oh God!
Ouch!
Yeah.
And the reason it's funny, the reason we're laughing, is because it's not far from the truth.
And speaking of that, I would like to, if you don't mind, it just popped in my head. I'm going to share with you guys, and for your audience, the same email that I read on the air from a good friend of mine who's very good with numerology, and he's actually writing a book right now on a lot of this stuff, and I'll pull it up in 2 seconds. But basically what it came down to is there's always, and this is, again, inconsistencies, there's always these, all this numerology stuff that gets tied in with everything, Mm-hmm. And it's like, how is this even possible if this wasn't staged in some way, or, I don't even know how to explain it.
At least premeditated, sort of.
Right, but here's the thing: how would things like an eclipse, which is supposed to be, an extra Terran event, something out of our control, yet it still seems to line up with the gematria and all that sort of thing. So anyway, that's kind of what I'm on about. It's like, how are these things lining up with all their numbers, like 33 and all that kind of stuff? Because that all ties into the Freemasonry, and I think you guys probably know what I'm talking about with that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
do you think that they purposely put that stuff in there, or there's something with the matrix that we live in that these things happen? That it's not planned; it just happens because that's how things work.
That is exactly what I've been trying to figure out, and I'll just totally lay this on the table right now. I have been leaning more and more, not that I can prove it, but just based off of weird things that have happened to me, and I'm really wondering if we are in some kind of simulated reality. I don't really know what to call it, but it's like all these bizarre numerics seem to line up, and the powers that be seem to have at least some information about it. So there seems to be some sort of rhyme and reason to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Ole Damagard, who does, do you know who Ole is?
Oh yeah, I actually interviewed him a while ago. Really nice fellow.
He's amazing. Light on Conspiracies. He does a podcast, and he digs into all of these false flags that are going on, and he's been finding messages, clues in each one that tells you what the next one's going to be, and from the numerology on the license plates and stuff. And he found this one car, and then they got the the VIN number or whatever, and they looked up the history of the car, and it's had like 4 different license plates over the last year and a half, but all of the numbers tie into everything. It tells you which is the next one. So some of it is definitely orchestrated. Again, I've had some crazy number stuff happen to me, but just by chance. So again, I don't know if we'll ever know the complete truth on that.
Yeah, I don't know. And I did find it. This will only take a second. Let's get you guys' thoughts on this if you don't mind. This is from my friend Wayne McCroy, who's, as I said, writing a book, and he sent this to me beforehand to make sure I read it before the eclipse to see how things would line up. So I thought you might be interested in some of my eclipse findings. Here it is. There's a lot of 3 and 4 encoding as well as a lot of hidden symbolism. First, the path of totality travels from west to east, which is Masonic symbolism, with the last North American view being over Columbia, South Carolina, also highly symbolic, on the 34th degree parallel, 3s and 4s again. During the eclipse, there will be 4 planets visible in the sky, Mercury, Venus, Mars, and Jupiter. As Crow pointed out, the double 4 encoding is heavy. Double 4s are the number of the master healer. 4 is also associated with Mars. My predictions based on these facts are as follows. Now, mind you, he sent me this and it's time-stamped beforehand. First off, it is possible that something unusual will be visible in the sky near the position of Mars. Or second, there will be a big announcement regarding the planet Mars. Or third, seeing as how Mars is the god of war, there may be a false flag somewhere on or near the 34th parallel within near time frame of the eclipse that may be a precursory event leading into a conflict. The master healer encoding may be metaphoric of being united against a common threat. I hope I'm wrong and nothing comes of it, but eclipses have historically been harbingers of doom and gloom. And what happened? This is what Crow and I read on the air. Trump announced about renewed efforts in Afghanistan. There's your war. There's one of your Mars things. And they announced that they found snow on Mars. That was absolutely read on the 21st as well. So, everything he rattled off there it is. Plus all the numbers lined up.
Didn't Trump come out and make an announcement about going to war with Iran or something?
No, he made a big to-do about how the previous presidents have failed in the whole Middle Eastern and Afghanistan war, and he's going to renew the effort and make sure it's won. But of course, he gave zero details about what that means. No troop commitment, no, nothing. It was window dressing again. I don't know what to think of Donald Trump because he definitely is a little bit of a wild card, but I mean, he's an entertainer. He's an actor.
Right.
So, and he sure as hell didn't need the money as far as we can tell from what we know of him personally. So what he's doing there, I don't know, man, but it just seems like it's all part of the plan.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about Trump either. I've kind of gone back and forth on that, Jason. Is he part of the establishment or not?
The Illuminati card deck with the Trump card. There's so much stuff with him. Has this been planned from the beginning?
That's what a lot of people think. Now, I'm old enough that I played that game in the 90s. And I'll tell you, man, I used to, way more than the group of friends I was hanging out with, I would look at those cards and stare at them. And this is before I really got into anything. I was very suspicious and always aware of the fact that we were being lied to about a lot of things, but I wasn't highly into doing what I do now in the mid-90s when that game came out and was popular. But I would look at the cards and I'd be like, man, these are very specific, and I just got an intuitive feeling, you know what I mean? And how
Jason,
many of those damn things have come
this?
true? I'm sorry?
What do you? I'm sorry for stepping on you.
That's all right.
But I warned you. What do you think of the concept of the reason they're telling us, the reason they're putting them in the card decks and in the commercials and in all of the movies is because they need us to actually create the reality that they want. So they're putting all of the stuff into our subconscious and then programming us with, with the news and getting us to create this low vibration of fear. And right now they want to invade North Korea, but they can't do it until everyone is like, oh my God, they're going to bomb us. We need to go bomb them, and then we create what they want.
Oh, there's absolutely no doubt. What you're referring to is what's generally called sympathetic magic, and what it also kind of goes hand in hand with mass consciousness, which has been proven to have an effect. People have done experiments with multiple people, large amounts of people, focusing on a singular event.
Maharaji effect?
Yeah. And I have absolutely no doubt that these things, whether consciously or unconsciously, are being done to us so that our minds are being put towards their goal, manifesting their reality, if you will. I think that is a big thing, part of it. And just from the things I have experienced in my life, and I have a fair understanding of the way the energy of the universe works, I would think. And it's almost like a computer program. You have to write it and then send it off to do its work. And the better the program, the better it's going to do its work. And that's what this seems like to me.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Especially with 9/11, they put all of that stuff out there. They played, with Back to the Future, you've examined Back to the Future, right?
Yes.
With 9/11, and it just they created it, and then we pounded the war drums. Everyone's like, "Let's go get them," and we went and we're going to get them still. That's the reality, that they're creating, and they make these plans that are 50, 100-year plans where people
Absolutely.
can't even fathom that, because I have a hard time planning next weekend.
Yeah, I've always, it's kind of silly, but I've wondered for the last year and a half, to myself anyway, if the flat Earth phenomenon is not a result of the same type of thing. We do. I guess I asked myself, was the same evidence and facts that flat earthers point to, was it really there 15 years ago, 20 years ago? And if it was, why didn't anyone stumble upon it? You know what I mean? I've wondered if the number of people that are now into the flat Earth hasn't helped to manifest it. I know that's probably not going to go over
that's
well
very
with our
interesting.
audience, but
That's a very interesting notion. It's almost like the Schrodinger's cat thing. Like,
Yeah,
is it flat? Is it round? Is it a banana? Until you look at it, kind of thing.
right.
Until you put the energy into it and the waveform collapses. And I'm talking about quantum physics here, but basically that's the idea. The waveform collapses and then it becomes whatever reality it manifests. And that's a very interesting notion because, as we've already discussed, we haven't seen a damned thing from space, at least not from far away, that we can authenticate as not being full of crap. So who knows, man? Because obviously the vast majority of people on Earth up until the past few years pretty much went right along with mainstream science that, we're on a spinning ball and that's, we've got this moon orbiting around us and we're orbiting the sun and all the planets are orbiting around that and then we're in a galaxy and then that galaxy is spinning and then the whole universe is doing it. I always called it the celestial dance or the cosmic dance,
I believe this is called moving the goalposts, and I am rejecting this because I do not want to consider this a possibility. All right? So it's either flat or round, and we know it's not round. We know it's not spinning, so it's flat, okay? Let's just focus on that, boys.
Well, again, we can't prove anything right now because none of us can get up into space and show anything. And the people who have or claim to have are liars. We know that.
Yep.
So this is where I'm right in the middle. I'm like, I can't prove it's flat. I can't prove it's round. I can't prove it's a banana. But what I can prove is that the people who have claimed to know are complete freaking liars. And that's red flags galore. That's why I remain objective.
So what does your gut tell you, Jason? Just your, not your
my absolute gut.
objective. I'm taking this to court. I'm not going to read this in front of a jury. Just what's your gut? What's your gut tell you?
That reality is not what we've been told it is.
Right.
That's what I think. I don't know exactly. Like, the problem is when people say flat Earth, they kind of get their own mental image of what that is. I can tell you that Crow thinks it's a plane, plane. It's like almost
Right.
like a dimensional sort of thing, and I can see evidence for that. So I don't know. That, again, I can't prove anything, but yeah, my instincts definitely tell me. I've had a lot of weird spiritual experiences in my life, so it's like I know there's more to life than just this three-dimensional world. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've experienced it. I've seen some really crazy stuff, and I can't prove any of it, so I usually don't go yapping about it. But in my own mind, I know these things happened, so I can use that as a basis of my own judgment,
That is an absolute truth. That's the biggest conspiracy, bigger than where we live, is the potential of who we are and what we're able to do. Because when you are truly connected to the earth, not in a state of fear, living in a high vibration, you can make magic. You can make things happen. You can manifest things out of thin air. And I have periods of my life where that happens, where the magic happens, from the impossible parking spot 15 times in a row to just creating the reality that I want. And David Icke was talking with Sophia Smallstorm, and I think I could tell the story without getting in trouble. And the question was asked.
Go ahead. No one's listening.
Yeah, no one's listening right now, so it's good. Yeah, no, I don't think it's a secret story, and I think he said this publicly. I think she asked him, "Isn't he worried about the people coming after him?" And he said that he is operating in a vibration so high that those low vibrational beings can't even reach him. And I totally get that, because when you are not in a state of fear, all of these trolls and, you know, whatever you want to call them, these low vibration energies, beings, demons, they can't even find you because everything is vibration. You have a box of rocks, stones, and sand and pebbles, and you shake it. The sand is never going to reach the rocks because they're going to separate, and that's the end of it. Well, that was a good analogy,
that is actually what you're describing is actually what we know the universe is really composed of, and that's frequency.
Right.
You know, I'm a musician, so this, and I'm also a studio engineer, so I'm very used to the concept of thinking in frequencies, but everything is based off of frequency. So if you're existing on a higher frequency than someone below you, you can interact with them, but they can't interact with you.
You can lower yourself down to reach them, but that's never a good idea. You want to stay up there and let them come up to you. But there's often times where people with a high vibration will lower themselves because they think it's the right thing to do, but it usually is never the right thing to do, because it doesn't do you any good to lower your vibration.
It doesn't, no. And normally when I do it, it's because I'm trying to help someone who doesn't see things or understand things the way I would like to think they should. So I try and impart knowledge, or, you know, however you want to explain it. I try my best for someone if it seems like the need is there, you know. Again, frequency. You're putting, and this goes back to the stuff that that I said about sympathetic magic. That's still just more frequency. It's energy. You're applying energy and trying to manifest the reality, and what you're literally doing is changing the frequency to be what it is you want it to be. I hope I'm explaining that well, but it's kind of how I see it in my mind, you know?
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with you. It's just it's so fascinating or mind-boggling, overwhelming to think about, really, that is real. You know what I mean?
So getting back to, is the Earth flat or round? The whole argument of, you know, is the Earth a ball, is just beyond belief to me anymore, that people can actually think that it is. I think the people that think it is just aren't thinking. What is your, you know, it's not a spinning ball flying through infinite space, and you're leaning towards a flat realm of some sort. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, my honest answer is that I'm right in between, because I want to find out for myself, and I've actually got something in mind to try and make that happen. And
yeah, I'm interested.
Yeah, I've been learning how to do filmmaking, and another flat earther contacted me who was a fan of Crow's show and wants to fund my idea. I want to send up several balloons with high-end cameras and flat pancake lenses. And the idea is one pointing up, one pointing out, and one pointing down. I already did research and picked out what I want to use, how I'm going to do it, how I'm going to power it properly. And basically my idea is, you know what, you're going to lie to me, I'm going to find out for myself, and I'm going to do it the right way. I'm not going to set up a $200 GoPro with a stupid fisheye lens. I know about those all day long. I sell them at my job. And they're crap. You can't get an accurate reading off of anything. I'm going to do it the way I know it should be done, and I'm going to find out for myself. Balloons can get up to 120,000 feet, and I should be able to at least see something to get me some empirical data.
Yeah, I'm waiting for somebody to launch one with the high-end cameras as well, but from Argentina. Like, let's go as far south as we can go and launch one up down there and see what it looks like south of Argentina.
I would love to do it more than once, as long as my cameras are recoverable, and the ones I chose are pretty robust, but will give me very good results. And as long as I can afford it, I'll do it once in my area, and I plan on doing it in Texas. I have traveled all over this country, and as soon as you get outside of Austin, there's pretty much hundreds of miles of absolutely nothing. Yep. So I figured doing it there, even with the drift that's going to occur, the chances of it coming down in some sort of water hazard or even at somebody's property is very low. I definitely can't do it where I live in Louisiana, because the cameras will go in water.
I was about to say, no, I don't end up in a swamp.
Did either of you see the footage that Bob from Glowbusters got with his balloon today?
I haven't seen it yet. How was it?
Mm-mm.
So he sent it up in Oregon during the eclipse and got amazing footage from the balloon of the sun in totality. And it really super high def stuff. And the conclusions are, we're being lied to.
Well,
That's it.
what was significant about the footage that leads to the conclusions?
I mean, the conclusion is that it's not what we're being told. It's not a rock in space. You know, you watch the sun, and it had this little small black dot in the middle of it, and the light, you know, wasn't showing an umbra and a penumbra on the land below. It was just amazing footage, and you know that it's not faked because it's raw footage. He's making it available for everyone to download and do whatever they want with. And you know, we know the guys, so it just real interesting footage. I think there'll be some, you know, it'll be analyzed over the next couple months, and we'll see what falls out.
Well, that's exactly what I intend to do. If the gentleman who contacted me, he has his own business and makes decent money, he agreed to put up a reasonable amount of money, and if he comes through, I am doing this because I want to know. It's bugging me, you know? I have to know. But I can tell you that the moon is not as it appears to be for one reason and one reason alone, and that's because of the lunar wave. And Crow is not the only person who's captured the lunar wave. That was his claim to fame, and he's known worldwide for it. But
others
zillions
have
of people
done it
have
now.
caught this thing now.
Yeah.
Tons of people.
Did you see?
Yep.
Somebody put out a video of a rocket going up just recently, and it looks like it hit something, and these ripples like water, like when a rock goes in the water. Have you seen that?
I've seen the famous one that that just stops dead. In its
No,
tracks,
not
but I haven't
not
seen
that
the water
one.
ripple one.
The Go Fast one. This was not on. This was being filmed from the ground. I think it must have been being filmed from the ground, and you could see the rocket and its exhaust was spraying out. It was interesting, but then all of a sudden it hit something, and you saw this literally just like a rock going into a pond.
And that's
all I
very
know.
telling because
Yeah,
that's
all I
actually what
know.
Crow has been saying for his thousands of hours behind a telescope. He very heavily leans towards space being some sort of liquid. He's been saying that for quite a while now, probably, I don't know, over a year, maybe 2 years now. And that's just because he said it's hard to explain, but when you sit behind a telescope, you start looking for things, like you start knowing what you're looking at and how things react and all that. And that's what he really is leaning towards. And
That's the way
I
I've been
can't
leaning
prove that
too.
either.
I've been leaning the same way, that it's some sort of whether it's plasma or liquid or water, but it's something liquid-like up there.
Well, and that ties into, interestingly, if space is water or the realm beyond our earthly realm is water, it really is interesting that it may tie into the whole concept of maritime admiralty law and how we're ruled, how we're slaves. We're enslaved to this system. It'd be interesting if, again, the law of the sea is actually the law of our universe. And, it's kind of a mind-blowing thought if you take a moment to think about it. But, man, that makes a hell of a lot of sense, doesn't it?
Yes. And there's just so many things that you come across, just something from something basic like when you're looking through the telescope at things and they appear to be like something at the bottom of a pool.
That's it. I think that was what got Crow onto it. But there's also the massive amounts of references. And like one of them was, of course, maritime admiralty law. But there's tons of references in different ancient manuscripts and just all that kind of stuff, and we've talked about
JFK's speech.
Yeah, that's it. Like there's all these references dropped, so you got to wonder if the higher you go up the food chain of being involved in government or banking or whatever, you start becoming more privy to information. It's kind of like the Freemasonic thing. The higher the degree, the more information is open to you, and you find out how much you've been lied to on every rank below. And speaking of Freemasons, by the way, have you ever seen one of the common depictions of a Masonic altar where it is the two pillars, Joachim and Boaz, and the checkered, black and white checkered floor, the altar, the sun and the moon on each side, and then over it is, in fact, a firmament.
I'm trying to remember if I've seen that. I know exactly what you're talking about with the checkerboards and the pillars.
Take a look at, and I can probably pull it up quick and email
what
it
do
to
we
you guys
Google
later.
for that, Jason, for those listening?
Yeah, let me see if I can find exactly. But anyway, my whole point is it's almost like the Freemasons know.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. But you're right. It is. It's like the higher up you go, the more you know. It's like that other expression or phrase or quote that I heard recently. Millionaires don't use astrology. Billionaires do.
Yes. And why is that? It's because they know there's some, and now I don't know if it's like the basic bullcrap newspaper stuff, but like they know there's more of a rhyme and reason to numerology is what I would say.
Oh, yeah. And no, I don't think it's the simple newspaper stuff. I think it's something far higher and greater that they're into.
Following announcement has been paid for by
The Flat Earth Podcast.
The Flat Earth Conference 2017 takes place this November from Raleigh, North Carolina. Tickets are sold out right now, but visit their website and get on the waiting list.
Or just head down. There's lots of people heading down to an adjacent hotel where they'll be live streaming in an auditorium and lots of outside stuff happening. A big Flat Earth hangout.
And if you want to contribute to the massive Flat Earth billboard that's going up down in Raleigh, North Carolina, head over to the website, flatearthpodcast.com, click on the link that sends you over to the billboard campaign.
The billboard is 14 feet tall by 48 feet wide. It'll be the biggest Flat Earth billboard to date. It'll be running for a month before the conference and ending the Sunday after the conference.
Head over to fe2017.com now.
The Flat Earth Podcast.
And if you are coming down to the Flat Earth Conference in November, on Wednesday, the day before, we're going to be kicking off the conference with a gathering at the Flat Earth Billboard, which is just 2.5 miles from the conference center. We're going to have hundreds of people there. We're going to have a drone up filming us. We're going to be live streaming it to all of the different media across the plane, and we'll be interviewing people during it that'll be going out over the live stream. Be part of that. You don't even have to have a ticket to the show. Just join us and listen for more information here on the Flat Earth Podcast.
The Flat Earth Podcast.
I like the fact that you're saying you want to get the balloons up and do your own test. You know, it was probably a year and a half after I started the Flat Earth research that I did the same thing. I said, you know what? I've seen a million videos of people showing things off in the distance, but I had to see it for myself. And something you can relate to because it was in Louisiana. I went up to Slidell, Louisiana, and on a clear day, and went down to the beach of the Lake Pontchartrain. So, picture it, Slidell is on the northeastern side of the lake. Right. And I put my P900 on an 18-inch tripod. So it was 1.5 feet above sea level, right? Pointed it southeast, and you can see as clear as day. You can see the tallest building in Metairie, which is the Executive Tower 1 building. Yeah, I can see like the top half of it. And, if we're living on a 24,900 mile sphere, then I should have not been able to see that building at all.
Yeah, Crow's come to the same conclusions using lighthouses and things like that. You basically, what it comes down to is you see farther than you should be able to. And
right,
that would imply that minimally the minimum assumption you can make from that is the dimensions we are given are incorrect.
Yes, that's what I say. The minimum assumption, I just told somebody the other day that the minimum assumption you can make is that either the size or the shape is wrong. If it's a ball, then it's got to be a circumference of a couple 100,000 miles for us not to be able to see this far and to not be able to measure any curvature. Or it's got to be flat. Either the shape or the size is wrong because the formula isn't wrong.
But if it was a couple 100,000 mile ball in the heliocentric model, their formula for gravity would be completely wrong.
Yeah, and the moon going around in a certain amount of time, it would all be off.
Isn't it already off? Doesn't the moon have to be hollow to have the amount of gravity that it has in their formula?
Supposedly, that's what it said, yeah. That first of all, no planet in our solar system, even if that's accurate, the mainstream model is accurate, no other planet has a satellite that's so massive in comparison to the size of its parent thing that it's orbiting. So even if that is true, we still have an anomaly. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like this is again inconsistencies as you keep going. You just keep finding more and more inconsistencies. So
I constantly keep finding things where the left hand doesn't agree with the right hand.
I want to just put this little thought experiment out there, especially for people that are new to Flat Earth. We have some people that this is over their head already, and it's good for anybody. We're told that the giant sun has captured the Earth, and the Earth is falling around the sun, and the Earth has captured the moon, and the moon is falling around the Earth in this perfect dance. And all of these other planets, some of them massive compared to the Earth, are falling around the sun, and all of their satellites are falling around them in this perfect dance that just never screws up, but all of the gravity from each of them in any alignment doesn't affect each other. Like when Saturn swings by us, it doesn't tug on the Earth, and the sun doesn't tug on the moon. Is this your understanding of the heliocentric model, Jason?
Pretty much, but here's the thing that
it's so ridiculous. I can't even say it without feeling stupid.
well, again, it's supposed to be, according to the mainstream, it's supposed to be this cosmic dance. Like, it's not just that the Earth is spinning around the sun. It's that you have to keep building it outwards, and all those forces would be at play. Now, doing math on that level, I don't think is really possible for us, because there's just no way you can know all the variables to begin with. So let's just start with that. But second of all, we see so many inconsistencies with that. I mean, they've even changed recently where we're at in the galaxy. We used to be on the very edge in the Sagittarius arm. Now all of a sudden we're more towards in the inner part of the galaxy in the Orion.
We're close
It's
to the middle now.
how could you be that wrong? You know?
And
It's-
didn't they say the sun is slightly bigger than they thought it was?
Yeah, they're leaning towards increasing the size. I just read that recently.
And Jason, do you know about the Great Attractor?
what do you mean by that?
So
He's
it's
talking about me.
yeah. At the center of the universe, there's this giant thing they call the Great Attractor.
Oh,
which-
like the black hole theory.
yeah,
that kind of thing?
But so the center of our galaxy is a black hole, but the center of the universe that has all the galaxies going around it, there's the Great Attractor. And I'm going to get the number wrong, but it's like 600 sextillion miles wide. And I did the calculation that if you're traveling at, I think, 1,000 miles per hour, it'll take you, I think, like 60 billion years to cross the face at 1,000 miles per hour. The number is so ridiculous, but this is what their whole heliocentric model is based on.
That's interesting. Here's another one that I thought of years ago, actually, long before I started really getting into the space fraud notion. The concept of a singularity is actually just a mathematical theory that someone came up with. I don't remember if it was Chandrasekhar or one of the other astronomers from a few decades ago. But basically the notion is that if you have a body that's X amount of massive, it could collapse in on itself and keep on collapsing because its own weight would keep that going, right? That's the concept until it got to a point where it ripped through the fabric of space and time. What that tells me that if that's actually true in some way, shape, or form, is that there's actually some sort of mathematical limit. There's a number where it's like if you go past this number, the universe breaks. That in and of itself seems really weird to me. Almost like, what is this, a video game? Like you can't go past that wall? And I don't know.
Well, when you create a universe from nothing, it's very delicate. You have to be careful not to make anything too big.
Well, you got to be careful if you think too much because you'll break it.
Yeah. And by the way, the numbers I gave on that, those are, I have no idea what the real numbers are. Go watch Jaron's channel and find his video on it. And it's so ridiculous that, once you realize what you've been told to believe, they're like, you're going to believe this, but we're not going to tell you what it is because you won't believe it. And that's the heliocentric model right there.
Even as far as mainstream physics is concerned, or astrophysics, maybe you'd call it, they've got that wrong because it's still just a theory of gravity. Something's not right with the math. It doesn't add up. I mean, I'm pretty sure they're missing the vast majority of the universe for just mainstream gravity to be the actual way things would work.
Right, they are.
If I understand it correctly, because I used to really be into this stuff years ago, they had to make up a bullshit constant called dark matter. And I was just like, this is like what they did in the 19th century with ether. It's just like they couldn't figure it out, so they made something up. It's like you have no basis of fact to base that off of.
Yeah, and to take it all the way back to where we started at the beginning of the conversation, I think a similar made-up term is the umbra penumbra stuff. Not necessarily the words, but the phenomenon that creates that small shadow from the large moon in their model due to this bending of light around the moon, creating the umbra and penumbra. I think it's the same thing. It's just made up stuff.
I'd be very curious, actually, now that you say that. Has anyone actually built a realistic model, digital representation in a computer to see if it actually works? using the mainstream constants. Like, this is the numbers they say they are. So someone has done that, and does it
In
or
fact,
does it not
you
work?
can't get it to even show a shadow because when you put it to scale, the sun is so far away that it doesn't even cast a shadow. It doesn't even give a shadow on the Earth from the moon.
Because it's infinite light and it just spreads out?
Right, and it just doesn't work. On the models that I've seen. Have you seen one, Dave?
Yeah, I have, and it doesn't work at all. Why can't we do an experiment just outside with the sunlight? Get a golf ball and a softball and put them 30 widths apart and see if you can create a shadow.
Well, you
on
could
it.
do that all day. I've done it a million times, and you can get a shadow, but
You can't even.
Oh, yeah, you
I
can't get a
even
shadow if it's 30
I've done
away.
it with the
Right.
with the spotlight. I was just thinking with the sunlight, but then there's light all over the place. But I did it with a 2 million candlelight spotlight, and it just spreads out. It just becomes slightly dimmer, if anything.
yeah, the shadow becomes very blurry and larger than the object, which is I think what Crow was trying to get at with his when he was talking about the physics of light on your
Yeah.
Eclipse show. And one thing that I mentioned this to Dave on the day of the eclipse, or maybe the day before, and I haven't mentioned it on the show, but so we're all familiar with the umbra penumbra diagram, right?
Yeah.
Where they show the light coming at the moon, and then it starts to bend inwards towards the Earth, and that's what creates the penumbra, the area around the shadow, right? So my question is this, and I took some pictures on the day of the eclipse, and from a certain location where I was on that day, and I'm actually headed back there in the middle of this week to take some pictures again to verify. But wouldn't that mean if only during the solar eclipse, if the light rays are doing something different, if they're coming at an angle, wouldn't that mean that a sundial would not work or would read the wrong time on the solar eclipse day?
Just because the light was being cast incorrectly?
Yeah, it's coming in at a completely different angle.
Yeah, I suppose that would
Is
be
it
true.
coming in at a different angle, or is it just coming in with some of it being blocked?
No, it's coming in. All of their diagrams have it
Right.
hitting the moon and then turning inwards.
Because it's being refracted?
And so it would hit the surface of the Earth in the penumbra. It would be hitting the surface of the Earth at a sharp angle rather than straight on like it normally does.
Sundials themselves prove that the Earth is stationary because there's these ancient sundials that still work. And if we were spinning, spiraling, and rocketing through space, something would change just a little bit. But there's these sundials that still show everything exactly how it's always been.
Yes.
And that's just impossible in this random rotating gravitational multi-body
Well, yeah, upside down spherical
expanding
ball.
system.
Yeah.
The stars shouldn't be in the same place for a zillion years. They would absolutely. If we're doing this dance, it's not a perfect dance. Everything's constantly shifting over the course of a very long period of time, and that's doesn't seem to be what we see at all.
Yeah, I believe it was it Tycho Brahe that gave them what they needed back in history before he died, when he was arguing against the heliocentric model, and he said, that's impossible. No, we're not a ball going around the sun. And he said, the only way you can make that work is if you place the stars trillions of miles away. And a month later he's knocked off, he's gone. Kepler takes his data, and so it begins. We're now a ball floating around the sun.
And of course, the Catholic Church had a lot to do with science from that point on too.
Yeah, in fact, they were the ones that
especially the Jesuits.
Yeah, they were the ones that commissioned Copernicus and Newton and Galileo.
Well, this is also why you got to wonder why
Did they?
Did they? At least that's what we're
Did
told
they?
anyway.
Are they real people?
That's something else that we challenge. I'll tell you one thing I've been coming up with a lot. I'm pretty sure, although I can't prove this yet, that our history is
Garbage?
maybe not entirely, but I think it's skewed. Again, I try to be objective about this because I can't prove it one way or the other. And I don't like jumping to extremes because I cannot stand the whole "you're a crazy conspiracy theorist" nonsense. What I'm doing is challenging the mainstream paradigm, and that's all I'm doing. And when I see dates and times and things like that don't add up, if these numbers don't correlate, then something is wrong. And a lot of the work of someone like Flamenco that's been, or Fomenko, forget his name, the Russian fellow who's still alive.
Yes.
I've been looking at that more and more, and there seems to be some strong evidence that he may be right, that there's minimally a couple of 100 years that got skewed.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, and what it comes down to is, for anybody that doesn't know what I'm speaking about, It's basically like the Dark Ages were just kind of tacked on to stretch things out a bit.
Yeah.
Like there's this extra bit of time when the reality seems more likely that, humans didn't sit around doing nothing for hundreds of years, which is basically what the Dark Ages were. So once you get into that whole area between like after the fall of the Roman Empire, I can't put exact numbers on it. I don't want people looking up and going, you're full of crap. But it seems like fall of the Roman Empire-ish up until like the 1600s, that was kind of compacted in some way. Mm-hmm. And, well, I mean, what does that do? If you do that to someone and you put that out there, you just, your whole view of history is completely mangled. You just, if you don't know that, it's kind of like the 1984 thing, about controlling the past and all that. He who controls the present controls the past. He who controls the present, controls the future. So, and that's what I see happening here. And while I can't find one singular smoking gun for any of these crazy things we're talking about, what I do see is massive inconsistencies all over the place.
Yep.
In all these different subjects.
They're just changing history. I bet in 30 years from now that people won't even know about 9/11 anymore. It'll just be lost when this generation dies. Within a short period of time from now, they're going to be like there never was a Building 7, and it's just going to go from there.
David, they already are. They already have. If you go back and watch broadcasts from the first couple of days,
they took it out.
They took stuff out. Yep. Like they were talking about. I went back and rewatched some stuff.
Yeah. Just
to prove it to myself because it's getting on in years now. That was a while ago.
Jason,
now.
I live right near New York, and I've been in New York City, and I've taken surveys on the street, and I would say 9 out of 10 people don't know anything about Building 7, and the other
that's
one.
Insane.
Yeah.
God.
And then the other one's like, well, I heard something about that. Yeah, but it was heavily damaged from the collapse of those buildings. So what they know is just nonsense. But in Manhattan, they don't know about Building 7. And most people don't even know about Building 6, which I think is the smoking gun of it all.
Well, what I was even getting on about it was that on the news themselves, they were talking about bombs. There was all this stuff where they were talking directly about, there were these explosions and then those explosions, and they were talking, and this only lasted the first few days. After that, all of a sudden, boom, that just didn't get talked about anymore. Even though they were having authority figures saying on camera that this is what we were reporting, this is what happened, and all of a sudden it just didn't happen anymore.
It's gone.
So the whole memory hole thing was already going on the week of the whole damned event.
There was so many things. They just changed history. We were talking about earlier about, what was Flat Earth Awakening happening before, 2015 when it really kicked off now. And I believe, sure, there was people that knew this. The problem was they couldn't really reach anybody. We have the ability right now to reach people. When this podcast goes out, it'll be everywhere. People everywhere where there's internet, which is most of the plane, will have access to it. We can tweet things that go out to more people than you could reach in your entire life back 100 years ago, and we're still having trouble reaching people and getting our messages across. So 100 years ago, if there was, let's say we all lived in the same neighborhood and we knew the earth was flat, how would we tell people?
Yep. I've said a few times that I think the powers that be, whoever's responsible for this, if it was a deceptive plan, like I think it was, the one mistake that they made or didn't count on was technology and the dissemination of information and how easy it is.
Basically, the internet is what I always say. I always call the elite the creepy old men, and I just wonder if they didn't realize the cat that got let out of the bag with
the internet itself. I couldn't agree more.
Because all the things you just rattled off are important, but it's the interconnectedness of all those things that is the real weapon here.
Yeah. The cameras being able to see so much farther, and the internet itself being able to spread the information. I really don't think. I think that was the part that wasn't in their playbook.
Jason, before we wrap this up, I would like to throw out one question. If you had to say your top proof that the Earth is not a ball, or your top proof that it's flat, what would it be? Or vice versa, if you have one.
Yeah, what's the most compelling argument for you?
Yeah, what's your most compelling argument that it's a ball?
See, that's the thing. I don't argue this in my head. It's more the point. My top proof for not accepting I don't just talk about the planet like in my own mental argument. It's more about the universe. the reality we live in. And my top proof of that is the lunar wave. That's why I do what I do with Crow, is because when I saw that and then started fact checking like I always do, I always fact check things. It's like, okay, so this guy caught this. And then I found all these other people because I didn't see that till quite a while after he'd put it out. That's my proof that what we're seeing in the sky is not what we're being told it is. So I think beyond just the concept of the Earth. I think of the entire reality that we're in. And then, of course, that's when all those inconsistencies start coming in. So my honest answer that I can say to you is reality is not what we're told in the mainstream, but I cannot nail down exactly what it is yet.
Okay, fair enough.
Let me ask you this, Jason, just a quick question about, in your personal life, do you share, do people around you in your circle know that how you feel about all this stuff? Or do you keep your cards to your chest?
It depends upon who you're referring to.
Yeah.
I'm friends with a lot of people in the truth movement or whatever you want to call it. People, I'm getting to the point now where I'm starting to get known, which is a little bit of an odd feeling, but people write to me now and ask my opinions on things and ask me for information or advice, and that's cool. I mean, anyone's welcome to do that. I'll do my best. I mean, I have a busy life just because I still have to work for a living, but yeah, like in that sense, a lot of the people I speak to definitely know my thoughts, because a lot of them will listen to the show I'm on. Now, in my immediate life, as far as like going to work and things like that, they all know I'm into things and they know I do stuff, but every single one of them besides one person is closed-minded as all hell, and it's annoying beyond all belief to me that I have to deal with that, but you still got to pay bills.
I was heading to a little barbecue beach party this weekend. I was kind of all excited, and Sophia Smallstorm called me up while I was getting some gas in my car, and she asked me what I was doing, and I told her I was going to this party, and she goes, oh, are they awake or are they globies? I was like, oh, they're globies. And she just put such a downer on my day. But I managed to hold my own. I sat there and smiled as they sprayed the sky over us. And we sat there on the water looking at the flat horizon while everybody thought we were spinning over backwards.
That's it, David. I mean, it's like I can't even point at the sky and get most people to acknowledge that something's wrong. Like I said, everybody I work with besides one person, I have one friend that's awake, and he doesn't do anything about it, but he knows, and we'll have discussions on things from time to time, especially outside of work. But I mean, I'm surrounded. I mean, Southern Louisiana is probably not the most open-minded place to be anyway. No. But it's the Bible Belt. It is what it is. But it's very frustrating to me because while I can have an amazing conversation with awesome people like you, in my day-to-day life, I'm surrounded predominantly by just very close-minded people who not only aren't interested in these things, they don't want to be interested in these things.
Right.
They just football,
Yes, I know. I don't share my thoughts with a lot of people back home either.
Well, I mean, at a job, you can't go broaching high-end concepts because you have absolutely no idea who's on the other end of the counter,
Right.
So you got to be really careful. Now, I have had people bring things up to me. There was one Army sergeant who, out of the blue, just started talking about things. He was having a conversation with one of my employees, and I was standing nearby, and I chimed in because I knew exactly what he was referring to, and of course the kid he was talking to didn't. And he blatantly admitted to me, he goes, oh, there's 16, you might know what I'm talking about here, Jay. He said, oh, there's 16 military bases between here, meaning Baton Rouge, and Gonzales, which is about 20 minutes, half an hour up the road.
I was supposed to say 15 to 20 miles? Oh, yeah.
No, he said that there is 16 bases between here and Gonzales, and I don't know what kind of drive is that, maybe 20 minutes, half an hour, depending on traffic.
Miles, yeah.
Right, up 10. Right. And he said there's 16 bases that you'd never know they were there.
Jeez.
So, and I mean, and you know how short of a distance that is.
I definitely know the area you're talking about.
And this guy just rattled that off to me out of the blue, and I was like, I mean, I'm not surprised. I'm quite certain they're entrenched everywhere now.
I'm surprised because that's a small stretch.
Well, it makes me wonder why they have that much of a presence here, and maybe it's to protect the oil interests if anything ever really bad went down.
It's not for the crawfish.
I don't think it's for the crawfish.
Well, it could be the crawfish. It's good crawfish.
I can see that. I like crawfish.
Well, what's the next subject you guys are covering on the show, on the Crows show?
We are actually doing an interview. Well, there's two things, just in case with the time zones it gets messed up. The topic we had already picked and started scripting was for the science fiction social engineering of our view of space and space travel and all that. and I've already written most of the show. But Crow got to me today and said, "Hey, I got a hold of Jungle Surfer, and he's going to do the show with us this week instead." So as long as he comes through, Jungle Surfer is going to be on with us. I don't know if you guys know who he is. He talks about a lot of the same stuff we all do. Sometimes I think he goes a little over the top, but at least he challenges the paradigm, and I respect the hell out of him for that.
Yeah, and I co-host a podcast called the Flat Earth Podcast, so it's hard for me to call anything over the top anymore.
Sometimes I think the only thing that bothers me about Jungle Surfer is everyone's a tranny.
Oh yeah,
He gets
yeah,
on those tirades. And I do think, I have
Everyone.
absolutely no doubt. I have no doubt that there's trannies all over the place in Hollywood, like as our celebrities. I think they mess with us left and right just to screw us up. You know, I think a lot of what again, it's just more deception, you know, anything to mess with us. I just don't think, like, I've watched a lot of his videos, and I think sometimes, like he says Alex Jones is a big old woman and things like that. I'm like, Alex Jones is a lot of things, but I don't think he's a chick. I've met him.
No, I'm with you on that.
But still really like the guy. I mean, he did stuff on the Eclipse, said the same things we did. Massive inconsistencies. It looks more like a piece of paper got stuck over the sun, and as opposed to an actual rock blocking it. So same thing. You know, we're kind of all on the same page here. You know, we see massive inconsistencies.
Definitely. Dave, you got anything else for Jason before we let him run?
No, that's good, man. It was really great talking to you. Everybody subscribe to Secrets of Saturn on YouTube, and go to crow777radio.com. Best podcast out there.
Oh, it's so good.
It's the best. It's literally the best. And, you know, we discuss lots of the stuff that I learned on that show. So
And I think both of us are subscribers, you know?
Well, I appreciate that. And we try our best on that show to get just right at the heart of the matter, do our best, and then just discuss it logically. Here's what we found. Let's break it down. And what we normally do is we put things into a timeline so that it makes sense to people, because you never know who's new coming into this sort of thing. And when you just come out and say, I don't think dinosaurs are real, they're going to be like, bullshit, you know? But then we go into and look into how dinosaurs came about, and why, or nuclear bombs. Man, I didn't really want to touch that one at first. I mean, I'll always do anything because I don't care. I'll look at anything. But, you know, that little thing in my mind was still a social engineering program. Like, of course nukes are real. No. Now after I tore it apart, I don't think nukes are real.
I wanted to touch on that and the dinosaurs, two amazing discussions. But the whole nuclear bomb thing, once you realize that nukes are just not real, and we could do a whole show on that, it changes what you hear on the news, because every time you hear them say the word nuke, you just write off what they're saying. You're just like, nonsense. And it sure makes life feel a lot better.
Well, yeah, now you know that there's not a bunch of retards on with their fingers on buttons. You're just like, oh you can't actually do that. I'm sure they have big explosives. I have no doubt about that. But this nuclear threat thing is fear porn and fear porn alone.
And that's how they control us, keep us in that low vibration of fear, believing that we're spinning on a ball backwards, and you don't know where you are. You can't get oriented ever to go anywhere.
And since we are ending this, the one thing I want to say to your listening audience and spread this to everybody is it's all social engineering programming, folks. The things that we do on the show every week, we just pull out certain aspects and point them out with facts. But what it all comes down to, ladies and gentlemen, is that they're just attacking us on a mental, spiritual level every single day in multiple ways. They're hitting us and hitting us hard over and over and over again, so you do not know which way end is up, literally.
On that note, we're going to ride off into the sunset once again. Please leave us a review on iTunes. Check us out on the flatearthpodcast.com. Visit Jason over at Secrets of Saturn and Crow77. And Dave, anything else?
That is all for this week, boys.
All right. Thank you for joining us, Jason.
Oh, gentlemen, thank you so much. It was a blast.
Sandy Hook was a scam. Come on, man. Are you tripping? Constant programming being crammed in your vision. Just take a step back and examine this prison. Turn on the news and they're trying to blind you. All they ever do is tell you lies and divide you. There's nowhere you can even hide. They'll find you. Illuminati, all-seeing eye right behind you. It's about time you find out we're being lied to. They're attempting to control the mind that's inside you. Hide you from the power that designed you. Does anybody have a problem with this? Well, I do. I want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. They say they got it, but they're never coming up with proof. If you're looking, then they got you jumping through these hoops. The lies always continuing to rise and busting through the roof. I want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. They say they got it, but they're never coming up with proof. If you're looking, then they got you jumping through these hoops. The lies always continue.